Armor stands. Yes, today we're going to be talking about armor stands. So, welcome to another Minecraft Bedrock Edition add-on and tutorial showcase. Today we're looking at armor stands and the amazing new features that I have added to the vanilla armor stands. Minecraft Bedrock Edition armor stands are wonderful things with already so many built-in features, like being able to change them, just like this, by shift clicking on them, and also being able to stick redstone into them, and the different level of the redstone will affect the pose. Excuse these different armor stands doing different things. We're going to cover exactly what we can now do with these armor stands in just a minute. But before you get carried away and go and hit that download button on FoxyNoTail.com, just bear in mind that these armor stands will need updating very, very soon. Because of an update in the latest beta, armor stands will now have a conditional bandwidth optimization, which is basically a back-end thing to make them a little bit less laggy. We can't add that in the current version, and I have no idea when the beta will become a stable release, so hopefully that won't be too long, and when it does drop, be sure to head over to FoxyNoTail.com to get the updated version of the armor stands pack, because I will be adding that into the pack. Anyway, let's get on and see exactly what we can do with our armor stands. Just a quick note to say that this pack will not affect existing armor stands in your world. If you have already placed armor stands and then add this pack, you won't be able to modify them using these features. You'll need to replace those armor stands. Grab yourself an armor stand, place it on the ground, and you might notice an immediate difference. The armor stand has no arms, a little bit like on the Java edition of the game. That is now a choice, and the way you choose to enable the arms is to use black dye. If you look at the black dye, I've renamed it visual. You don't need to rename any of these dyes. You can do that if you want to, just to make it easier for you. And if we use that black dye by shift clicking or crouching and clicking on the armor stand, it will grow arms. And then if we click it again, the base plate will disappear. And if we click it again, the arms will disappear. So we've just got an armor stand with no base plate. Then if we click it again, it's going to go smaller, and it's going to cycle through those same things again at that size. And then if we click it again, it's going to go even smaller. Yes, micro armor stands are now a thing. Again, cycling through the things. And if you think that's great, what about when we go and click it again? Well, that might not look a great deal different from normal, but let's put another armor stand next to it. That's right, we now have giant armor stands, which both work perfectly well with all the armors and items, just like you would expect, which is absolutely great. If we add all of these things in there, fully dress them up, and then go click happy with our black dye, we can make many different sizes of armor stands, which is fantastic. What else can we do? Well, let's pretend we've got a shop and we're selling redstone components. Now, you might want your items to be displayed in a really fancy way, which means getting armor stands and pushing them about with pistons to force them into blocks and then getting their pose right, but it still looks a little bit janky. It doesn't look quite right, does it? Let's see if we can make this shop look a bit better with our new armor stands. So we have a blank shop, but before we start placing things inside the shop, there's a couple of things we ought to look at first. The first one is using white dye, shift clicking, and making the item stands invisible. Now it's still there, but it's invisible, and when using this, please make sure that you don't leave item stands all over your world invisible, because it will cause a little bit of lag. The best thing to do, so you don't lose them, is give them an item and then make them invisible, and the item and the armor won't go invisible, which means we can now have items being displayed without seeing the armor stand. The next thing we ought to look at is gravity. If we pop a block there, put the armor stand on top, and then break that block, it's going to fall down. If we pop a grass block there, put the armor stand there, shift click and hit it with a grey dye, and then break that, it's not going to go anywhere. And having armor stands without gravity means we can get all sorts of positioning done we just couldn't do before. And in order to change the positioning of the armor stand, we're going to use these dies here to move it around, and we're going to use these dies here to rotate it. So if I grab all of these ones here like that, and then go to this one, I can now move it around by shift clicking with the different colors of dye. So that's the X direction, the Y direction, and the Z direction. We can now move this in order to get it exactly where we want it. If we were using an armor stand without gravity, and we use the Y direction to go up, it's going to fall back down. And if we do the Y direction down, it's actually going to sink into the block because it's now clipped through that block. So the gravity one is really useful there. Additionally, these 4 dies here are also really useful because we can now rotate the armor stand clockwise and anti-clockwise with the blue and the green dies. And with the yellow die, we can do something that they can't do on Java Edition. We can rotate the armor stand completely in the X direction and the Z direction, which means if we use our black die to get rid of the base plate, we can have our armor stand pretty much in any position or rotation we want, while still posing it as well, which is going to enable us to get our item exactly where we want it. The other thing that's going to come in useful here is going back to the black die. When we actually change the size of the armor stand, the size of the item or the block it's holding also changes size. It scales with it. So you can display items that are large and items that are very small, just using the standard items in the game. Of course, we could always use my mini blocks add-on to save us the effort of using the armor stands, but in order to use those, you are going to have to find a wandering trader that's actually trading those blocks. So if you'd want to do this the easy way without having to find wandering traders, or if you don't have my mini blocks add-on installed, then using the armor stands is the next best thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change the pose until the armor stand has got the item in a roughly square position. So let's move it around. Okay, doing many jiggery pokeries with the armor stand, I have now managed to get this block into a position where it's looking like it's pretty much square. So now I just need to get it so that it's actually sitting on the block. There we go. And then just use the rotational stuff just to move it around to get it exactly where I want it. So let's just move that there like that. Very good. Now all I need to do is push it back on that block a little bit to get it in the center, and then get rid of the armor stand. And there we go. That block doesn't look quite as good as when I use one of my mini blocks. Although, let's just make that armor stand a little bit bigger. Let's make it not invisible for a second. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's make it invisible again. And use our handy little dies in order to move it around a bit more. And there we go. It's not perfect, but it's a darn sight better than what it is the other way around. So there we go. We can now position and rotate our armor stands a lot better and do a lot more interesting things with them. But what else have we got? I've got a couple more tricks up my sleeve here. One of them is the fact that our Bedrock Edition armor stands cannot bend in the middle like on Java Edition. On Java Edition, they can bend there. So in order to get us around that, what I've done is created this sitting one, which will actually make your armor stand sit down. And the really nice thing about this, if you give it some arms, is you can still then affect it using the normal armor stand poses by shift clicking on it without an item in your hand, and you can get it to do some pretty interesting and crazy poses. And using the black die, you can miniaturize it as well or make it bigger and do all sorts of crazy things like that. So, and that also works with the redstone as well. When you're having it in the sitting position or even just laying down, rotating it, the redstone will still work and activate this. So you can create some pretty cool dioramas in your world and make some really interesting looking stuff. But what if you've arranged your armor stand just how you want to arrange it and you don't want it to be fiddled with, or maybe you've got a couple close together and you keep clicking on the wrong one? Well, there's one more trick up my sleeve, which is the magenta die, which will lock the armor stand. So when I click or shift click with the magenta die, you'll see the saturation of those armor stands actually goes a little bit less saturated. It's a little bit dull. Now, when that happens, I can no longer click on it and change the pose, and I can no longer use any dies on it. However, because this is a Bedrock Edition, there's always going to be limitations and issues. If I break the ground below it, it's going to sink. So we do need to give it gravity to stop it from going anywhere. And in order to do that, we need to unlock it. So unlock it, gravity, and then give it that. And now it's not going to fall any further down. But I can still break it, and you can still put armor on it and change the item in its hand while it's locked. There's nothing I can do about it. It's Bedrock Edition. But it will stop you from clicking on it accidentally as you're trying to move something else around. What if, however, you have one of my mob heads and you really want to use one of those with this pack? Well, the lock system is going to help you with that. Let's turn on the gravity, or off the gravity. Let's lock this armor stand, and then let's position a head behind this armor stand like so. In fact, you know what? Let's get rid of that head. Let's make this a miniature one. Let's go really, really small by unlocking the armor stand. Let's make it nice and small, like this. Let's make it really, really tiny. Then we'll lock it again. Then we're going to put that head back, and then we're going to make that head bigger. And then we're going to use some of the dies in order to move that head about. Then we're going to make that head smaller again, like so. And there we go. We have a miniature little person like that. Yes, very, very nice. But Foxy, we can't move the heads around like that with your existing pack. Oh, yeah. Video coming very soon on movable and rotatable mod beds. Yeah. For now, though, you'll just have to put up with being able to do that with the microblocks add-on. And now the armor stands. And on that note, I just want to say one more thing. I do realise on Java Edition they have a fancy book on vanilla tweaks and on Hermitcraft where you can then click functions in the book that will move the individual arms and the waist and the neck and the feet and stuff like that. That's just not possible to do on Bedrock Edition. First of all, we can't run functions from books, which is a big shame, but that's just one of those things. The other thing is that the armor stands themselves, because they're an entity, there's only so many modifiers we can actually add to that. And whilst it is actually possible to animate the arms and the legs and the waist and the head individually, there just aren't enough modifiers on behavior packs in order to add all of those things. Using these dies, I've actually completely maxed out all of the available modifiers that I can use in order to create those animations, so there is literally nothing else I can add to this pack because of how it works, which is a real shame. It would be great if I could use an item to move one of the arms up and down and left, right, but we'd have to have a different item for up and down, backwards and forwards, rotating, and a different item for each leg, a different item for the waist and the head because of how Bedrock Edition works. So I think it's absolutely great the way this works. We've got the best of both worlds. We've got the vanilla Bedrock armor stands that will pose and you can use redstone with it, and we've got them positionable and rotatable as well. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm really happy with it and I hope you are too. So on that note, I want to say thank you all very much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye. We're not leaving until you finish 20, Frank. You're on 18 and a half. Come on, you can do this. Come on, one more. Go on, push. Oh, you know what? Forget it. See you later, guys.